As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. They better not play that game.
So it looks like Iran may have made yet another catastrophic and economic mistake here today, as the nation of Qatar has now announced it is officially severing all ties with Iran, even expelling all diplomats and military personnel from the country, declaring anyone representing the Iranian government to now be persona non grata, after Iran once again and very stupidly tried to attack the civilian infrastructure of the Gulf countries, who have repeatedly made it very clear they don't want anything to do with this war, and Iran just keeps on dragging them into it and making even more enemies here. Except in the case of Qatar, I would argue this is even more problematic for Iran than a country like Saudi Arabia, because as we'll announce today, not only was Qatar the friendliest country to Iran of all of the different Gulf states, Qatar was even helping to basically keep Iran's economy alive before this war by allowing them to circumvent international sanctions. And so now, what does it mean that Qatar is officially stating, you are persona non grata, we are cutting you off 100%, severing all economic ties? Well, long term, it's not exactly a very smart move for the Iranian regime. Although, at the same time, in total fairness, given the fact we have no clue who actually is in charge of the Iranian regime, and they do appear at this point to basically be on a suicide mission, then I guess it all makes sense. Now, this entire situation is unfolding after it was announced earlier today that Israel had struck a major natural gas field in the country of Iran itself. And so Iran basically retaliated by saying, oh, okay, Gulf states, then we're going to come back and strike yours. But again, for reasons I'll explain, I think this is yet another stupid strategic blunder by Iran, but it could complicate things. I'll give it that at the same time. So, this is a little bit nuanced, so we'll analyze that. We'll tell you all about this. But again, latest updates here on basically the energy situation, attacks against Iran's energy infrastructure, and then Iran trying to attack back, but it would appear not being all too effective. And then again, what it means diplomatically for Iran. And so let us bring you now the updates from today on the Iran conflict. Let's get into it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, so in order to understand the situation, we have to start here. As you can see earlier today, reports of massive damages of airstrikes today against the South Pars natural gas field, which is the world's largest single gas field. So obviously you're talking about something here that is a major lifeline for the Iranian economy. Bear in mind, Iran itself is a country whose 80% of their electric grid is powered by natural gas. And what's very notable, by the way, about this gas field, which you can see right here, is, in complete and total destruction, up in flames 100%, very catastrophic damage, even just by visual eyesight there, right? What's interesting is about this gas field is that Qatar and Iran long had an agreement through with Qatar more gas from the shared gas field under the Persian Gulf and sells it on behalf of Iran to help it circumvent international sanctions. So let's repeat that. Basically, this is a gas field where Qatar kind of had a joint agreement with Iran. And let's remind ourselves, right? Saudi Arabia and countries like that in the Gulf region absolutely for a long time have basically despised Iran. But Qatar, I repeat, is the one country in the Gulf who basically kept semi-friendly relations with Iran. And they were even allowing Iran to circumvent sanctions by basically taking the gas from this field and then selling it to Western markets, basically claiming it was Qatari, but really it's Iranian. So obviously, again, this is not just important for Iran's domestic energy resources, but their economy and the money they're generating as a country through global trade. Very key here as it pertains to Qatar, right? So as you can see, right? So Qatar is obviously a country that in some way or another, you could argue was helping the regime. And that is, of course, now what happened. This natural gas field has been blown up. As a result of it, by the way, as a result of Iran's energy infrastructure being targeted, as usual, the regime here responded by once again making threats that, oh, you're gonna regret this, you're gonna pay for this, we're gonna be blowing up your energy now. As usual, take a listen.
We begin with threats of retaliation from Tehran after Israel reportedly attacked Iranian gas facilities earlier today. Iran says that it will take what it is calling decisive action in response to the attack on a petrochemical complex connected to the South Pars natural gas field, seen here in undated archive footage. The offshore gas field is the world's largest, with ownership shared between Iran and Qatar. Doha has slammed the Israeli attack, calling it a dangerous and irresponsible step. The attack has also shaken global energy markets, with oil prices hitting $110 a barrel today.
So yeah, once again, Iran is making threats. How many times have we heard that one before? But what's interesting about this strike is that while Israel is saying that it was carried out with U.S. approval, which is to say that Trump signed off on it for a strategic reason we'll explain here in a second, Qatar did not. As a matter of fact, Qatar came out and publicly condemned what Israel did, basically said that they don't think that energy infrastructure should be targeted, and yet Iran responded by attacking Qatar anyway, which we'll tell you about right here. So as you can see, hours later, as a result of the Iranian retaliation, Qatar apparently struck the world's largest natural gas export facility, the Ras Laffan refinery in Qatar, which, keep in mind, according to the picture we just painted, was one of the places that Iran was likely using to circumvent international sanctions. So if right now, if the Iranian regime is thinking long term, you have to question, what on earth are we doing? We're basically cutting off our one pipeline here to trading with the rest of the world, but apparently they do not care about that. And you can see the picture right here, the video, I should say, right here, of the alleged damage that has done. I would point out it does seem to be noticeably smaller than the damage that Israel was able to do, obviously, to the Iranian natural gas field. But still, it is something rather significant, and you could say concerning on the grand scheme of global energy prices, although I would point out at the same time, it does appear that most of Iran's attempts to retaliate today were largely intercepted, as you could expect, because militarily, we know that they're just not what the coalition is, clearly.
So Iranian missiles being intercepted over Dubai this morning as the regime retaliates after Israeli and U.S. forces decimated Tehran's leadership.
Yep, they're going for energy infrastructure.
Now, look, at the same time, I don't want to completely downplay what's happening right now, because it is undeniably a concerning escalation, right? Essentially, what's happening is that now we attacked their energy infrastructure, so they're trying to attack the energy infrastructure of the Gulf states, although you could argue Iran are the ones who really started this by messing around with oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, which I think is completely fair, but still, it's undeniably going to be a problem. If Iran manages to severely damage or blow up a bunch of oil and gas production sites, let's say in places like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, that will only make the global energy crisis and the prices that you're seeing right now in the consumer markets far, far worse. And so certainly it is something that is definitely, to a degree, you could argue playing with fire. The reality, on the other hand, though, and why, again, much like I said yesterday about the Larjani strike, this is kind of a wait-and-see situation, is that, okay, so Iran says they're retaliating and they're trying to strike, and we did see they did do some damage, for example, to the natural gas facility in Qatar. I would point out that, on the other hand, most of the Iranian strikes, right, their so-called retaliation counterattacks, have done minimal damage thus far, right? This is not to say that they haven't done any damage or they haven't caused any casualties, because they have, but from a sort of military strategy perspective, the damage has been rather minimal, right? It's sort of not exactly catastrophic or super existential. And so what we're really watching right now, and what we all have to be praying ultimately does not materialize, is that we have to hope that Iran's current counterattack, where they're trying to attack energy infrastructure in the Gulf states, is ultimately not that successful, right? That it doesn't significantly harm the energy infrastructure there. sure, it can do a little bit of damage. It can leave a few dents, but we're hoping that it's minimal and something that, hey, we're largely able to intercept. Maybe they do a little bit of damage, but we can ultimately reverse that and it won't be too much of a crisis. And so that's the thing, okay? You may hear concern or there may be panic over, oh, Iran's now targeting energy infrastructure. It's not just about whether Iran targets the infrastructure, it's about whether their attacks and their strikes are actually effective, which is frankly right now what we are watching. And, undeniably, again, this is a gamble. This is something that could get very bad. It could get very out of hand if the Iranian military is successful. But given the fact that much of their capacity is already destroyed, how many ballistic missiles do they actually have? I mean, they're certainly rationing them, but how much can they really do? I think these are all questions to be had. And so if it's the case that we basically manage to send a message to their energy infrastructure and then they do minimal damage to us in response, that's obviously a pretty big victory. However, if it does go down as mutually assured destruction, then that's obviously a big problem for us, and then that's going to cause an even bigger problem with the energy prices. So this is just something we're going to have to go into tonight watching, right? How much damage in response is Iran able to do? Now, that said, according to the Wall Street Journal currently, to kind of give you the explanation and the understanding of what happened here. There were initial theories that perhaps Israel was acting completely rogue or they were trying to drag us into deeper escalation or bigger war. Well, according to them, right now, Trump basically cleared and approved this strike, but now wants no additional strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure after initially supporting the Israeli strike on South Pars, the world's largest natural gas field, as a message to Iran over blocking the Strait of Hormuz. So you may remember we talked about a couple days ago, actually, how Trump did the attack on Karg Island. That is the number one spot for Iranian oil exports. But he attacked the military infrastructure there and spared the civilian energy infrastructure, basically saying, hey, this is your message, Iran. Stop messing with the Strait of Hormuz, right? So that now he's basically cleared this as well to say, once again, Iran, stop messing with the Strait of Hormuz. Let oil exports be. And so that is sort of his argument here, and that's his strategy that he's employing. And so ultimately, if that's effective and we end up proving the point and Iran largely backs off of the Strait of Hormuz, that's going to be a success. And in that case, you would say, okay, we saw the vision. But again, this is just going to be something to watch. It's hard to really comment your true thoughts on something that hasn't played out yet. So that's why, just hopefully it all made sense what we're explaining. But that's basically what's going on right now, right? We sort of took a gamble in saying, okay, if we send a message to Iran and blow up a huge component of their energy infrastructure, sure, they might performatively try to retaliate, but will they deep down secretly get the message that we want them to back off of the Strait of Hormuz? This, again, remains to be seen.
Our weapons are the most powerful and sophisticated that the world has ever known, but for reasons of decency, I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision.
That said, let's now talk about Qatar, the very country in the Gulf region that is implicated in this, having explained basically how, again, Iran and Qatar are the closest friends of all the Gulf states. And I repeat, Qatar is a very vital and important country when it comes to Iran being able to basically sell stuff through proxy to the rest of the global economy. Well, Qatar, to make a long story short, is absolutely pissed about this. They're pissed about their own energy infrastructure being targeted. And now the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has just declared Iran's military attaché, security attaché, and all office staff and diplomats now persona non grata, ordering them to leave the country within 24 hours. So certainly, again, a big escalation there on behalf of the diplomacy. And they released this further statement here, basically saying the following. So the ministry stresses that Qatar has repeatedly called for the need to refrain from targeting civilian and energy facilities, including within the territory of the Islamic Republic of Iran, in order to preserve the resources of the region's peoples and safeguard international peace and security. However, the Iranian side continues its escalatory policies that are pushing the region toward the brink and drawing countries not party to the crisis into the conflict zone. Which is, by the way, true. And I'd like to point out again, as it pertains to Trump's thinking about this, right? What did we warn Iran about too? Folks, mutually assured destruction, which was to say if Iran wants to mess with oil tankers, we can mess with Iran's energy as well, which is obviously what's happening right now, not just from a military perspective, but even as it pertains to Qatar, right, an economic perspective, because here's what they further said. The ministry affirms that this, violates the UN resolution and all that. But the ministry also reiterates that the state of Qatar reserves its right to respond in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter and the right to self-defense as guaranteed by international law, stressing that it will not hesitate to take all necessary measures to protect its sovereignty, security, and safety of its citizens and residents. So there you have the statement from Qatar. Now, this is pretty interesting of a response, too, because you may remember seeing some of the headlines or the propaganda attempts throughout these weeks trying to frame this idea that, the Gulf states are really pissed about what America and Israel are doing, and they're privately trying to make calls to China. They're distancing. They're really mad at us, right? The argument was that we had severed and burned the diplomatic ties because countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia were pissed that we started this war. Well, I think the public signs you're seeing there are the opposite, right? They, at least on the surface, said they condemned the strikes. Maybe that was something of a performance, but they're making it very clear here, right? They're only being pushed further and further into the American camp. So I would point out all these reports, all these theories that you may remember from a couple of weeks ago, trying to say that the Gulf states were threatening to leave the United States. I think in the real world, you're seeing no evidence of that. As a matter of fact, you're simply seeing the opposite. The Gulf states are just growing more and more pissed off at Iran. And it has not stopped there. Apparently, today, Saudi Arabia was basically suggesting or offering to now activate a new defense pact with Pakistan if it had joined the Iran war. So basically, Saudi Arabia is running around the Muslim world trying to get other countries involved in the war against Iran. So again, doesn't seem like they're at this point even trying to pursue de-escalation or they're mad at the U.S. or they want a ceasefire. They're basically actually on the side of, at this point, they want to see Iran decimated as well. So that's one headline that we saw. A senior advisor to the president of the UAE had told Bloomberg on March 18th that, quote, Iran made a mistake when it attacked the UAE and other countries in the Persian Gulf. It brings them closer to Israel and the United States. For countries that have relations with Israel, those relations will grow stronger. For countries that do not have relations, I expect additional channels to open. So UAE further confirming, no. All that Iran's provocative actions against us are doing is dragging us and pulling us much closer to the United States. America's not actually losing any regional allies here in this process. And Arab states privately, according to Rabobank, are egging on the United States to continue its strikes to cripple Tehran so it can never attack anyone again. It is rather Europe with Russia and China that are calling for an immediate ceasefire, which is to say the countries in the region, the countries actually being involved in the conflict because of a lot of Iran's actions are now fully backing the U.S. to essentially here finish the job. The point of this overall is what? From repeated rumblings we're seeing all over the Middle East, it does appear that all this is doing is strengthening the coalition against Iran. And I repeat, right? That's about more than just, Saudi Arabia might let us use the airspace or something like that. This also, as we explained, may have major implications on the Iranian economy. As I said, from the moment they started targeting energy infrastructure, which started in the Strait of Hormuz, they were inviting a chaos scenario there that would have not been very good even for their own domestic economy. Obviously, we just blew up a major gas lifeline for them. But furthermore, now they're losing Qatar. Now they're losing the country that was basically helping them to avoid sanctions and sell the gas by proxy. This is not a good picture for Iran, ladies and gentlemen. So again, that's not to say that Iran can't do damage by, hey, if they hit energy infrastructure in the Gulf states, that's going to raise oil prices in the Western market. So that's a concern. And so I'm not saying this doesn't come without risk. But at the same time, I think you also see the signs that strategically what Iran is doing, besides a stupid suicide mission, doesn't really make a lot of sense long term. But I think it's very clear that, first of all, nobody's really in charge of the Iranian government. And so long-term strategic thinking is not really in their wheelhouse there. It's also noted that Ali Larjani had said before his death, where we took him, Israel, I should say, took him out yesterday, that, quote, It was regrettable that no Muslim country stood with the Iranian people during the attacks, to which we say, I wonder why that is. I wonder why the other Muslim countries didn't stand with you. Could it be because you keep on bombing them and provoking them and causing problems even for the ones who were trying to initially negotiate and mediate peace between the US and Iran, and as you know, you responded in kind by just bombing them and blowing their crap up? I mean, I don't understand it, right? So you have that. And, the domestic damage, by the way, for Iran is certainly notable. As you can see here, Iraq's Ministry of Electricity has said today that Iranian gas supplies have stopped completely, cutting off over 3,000 megawatts from the national grid after this strike on Iran's gas infrastructure. So the message right now, essentially, to Iran going forward is, look, again, if you want to mess with the Strait of Hormuz, now you want to launch missiles at, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and their gas infrastructure and that stuff, oil infrastructure, all that, we can do that too, right? So now Iran has to make a strategic choice. Do you want to keep messing with the Strait of Hormuz, as Trump pointed out, or not? Because now you are clearly seeing, right? The coalition here is completely serious. If you mess with our energy, we will mess with your energy and we'll damage your energy infrastructure clearly a lot worse than you can do to us. So what do you want to do, Iran, right now, right? That needs to be the question. What do you want to do? Do you want to just continue on the stupid suicide mission? Do you want to lose Qatar and that economic ability? Do you want to now lose even electricity in your own country? Or do you want to just say, we'll back off the Strait of Hormuz? It's a question I think we all have to watch here. We'll see what happens, guys. But there you essentially have it. Hopefully we sort of effectively tied all these stories together and explained to you what's happening right now as of today in the Middle East. That said, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll keep you posted here with more updates very soon. And until next time, God bless and peace.